And that's a hard feeling to differentiate from. This makes me uncomfortable because it's a growth edge. And it is hard to tell the difference. But I'll tell you, I hired someone and she was dreadful. I didn't like her on stage. I didn't like her when I worked with her. She also didn't deliver. And I knew it from the beginning. But she activated in me an understanding that I needed something. So when someone activates something, that's great. Go, oh, well, I need this. Fantastic. But then maybe go find someone who doesn't make you want to retch, which is it was a great learning and not that expensive of a mistake.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was expensive at the time, actually, but But with regards to nurturing, I wrote down nurture versus nag. I totally agree that holding on to old prospects can tie up your energy with going forward. However, I also know that not all people are always ready in the moment when you meet them. And so being in their world and serving them in some way, and here's the thing, Sajad, you do serve them. You show up on TikTok, you show up on these places, you show up in these places where they can be nurtured by you. They have to choose to show up, and that's an interesting energy. They have to decide to show up for you, to come back around to you, so they catch up with you in the future present. But yeah, I am not a fan of nagging. However, I had an interesting conversation with a follow-up expert last week because I have a little bit of like, oh my God, follow-ups, just shoot me, because I like the new things. I like moving forward. Yes. She said, Mary, I think wow, Pamela.
All right.
We're partying with Pamela.
What's happened there? That was a good one. Oh, we needed a little shake up, didn't we?
I know. Seriously, we're getting a little serious. But she said she did a webinar and had great rapport with everyone and everything was great. And then afterwards, she gave everybody a call and said, hey, how'd you like it? And her closing ratio was some crazy number, like 70%, because that personal touch wasn't about nagging. It was about connecting. So it's not just what you do, it's how you do it and why you do it. And that can be as simple as a decision. Fascinating.
I love this conversation.
May I highlight one thing really quick, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with everything you say, Mary. I really like you. We're going to be friends.
Fabulous. We work very differently, but yay.
I'm laid back and easy going. I don't know what the hell people are saying behind my back. But Mary, people like to hear what they like to hear, and then that's the part they take away. And I just want to highlight part of what you said there, the part that I think people will, at least my clients would choose to ignore, which is sometimes you got to do things that take you outside your comfort zone. So I don't think my way is the only way. I know the way I teach works. So sometimes my clients say, well, I want to do it my way, but their way doesn't make them money. So you don't have to do it my way, but you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to close deals. You can't make friends. You can't want everybody to like you and never want to make anybody uncomfortable, or you're not going to make money, or you'll luck into money once in a while. Anyway, I just want to highlight that there's the balance there between what you said, that sometimes that doing different that makes you uncomfortable is necessary for success. You can't just want to be comfortable all the time or you won't have any growth.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. And yeah. I also want to say, that's a great point. And I want to say too, Carolyn put some notes here in the chat too that I want to read, because she's saying she believes that nurturing people's in the future, like sending out your emails to provide value, but not obsessing over which people are looking at it. It's like seeing it as a step after step after step. Like in my world, it's kind of like the planting the seeds. It's like just you keep it growing. And she said so every so often, someone from her email list suddenly shows up for her services. So it's totally true. I mean, I think just continuing to know that as you're putting things out there, it'll come back to you eventually, if not so quickly.
Absolutely. And that's such Sajad, you were talking about, I want to be working towards the future. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. And I get all caught up in it. And I was like, yeah, planting seeds is entirely about the future. And there is that balance of giving them space to grow. And that's where I have to balance, because I want everything right now. And if it's not growing, if I didn't plant the seed today and get the fruit from it yesterday, I feel like I've done something wrong and I want to dig it up and find. So in one way that makes me good, because I do want to find what are the efficiencies. How do we move as quickly from meeting to hiring and all of that? And at the same time, there is this inescapable factor of time and germination. And sometimes the germination, some things grow very quickly and other things grow slowly, and just deciding where do we want to nurture and how.
I love that. And I would love to maybe just give a little more value on this topic, because several people were interested in this lead gen topic. Before I ask you the question, I would say too that yet another place where understanding your brand helps you with lead gen, because you know the right places to go to find the right people, right? So let's assume that everybody's done that work and they know this. So what would be then the tactical that you said? Because you said at the beginning, like the speaking and all that, but let's say you want to grow a little bit bigger. How are you, because speaking is great for that too. I see speaking more as a business development versus a marketing tool, but I guess we could argue either way. But that said, like what's our like lead gen from the perspective of scaling?
Well, first of all, until you have lead generation going, don't talk about, we shouldn't talk about scaling. Like seriously, it's like, it's completely, and not you, Melissa, sorry, not scolding here. Not scolding.
No, I get you 100%.
No, but I hear people very cart before the horse talk about scaling and how they have to get group programs going and all of this before they understand how to bring in leads consistently. And when I was early on in my business, I got a lot of the message, group coaching, you're going to run out of time, group coaching, group coaching, group coaching. Well, here's a little dismantling of understanding what that is. If you don't know how to bring in leads consistently, a group coaching program will have you doing group coaching, doing one-on-one coaching for group coaching prices, because with group coaching, for most models, you need everybody in it once. Okay. So if, let's say, one of the reasons why people do group coaching is because they're uncomfortable with the pricing for one-on-one coaching. That's motivator. It's like, okay, instead of $10,000, I'm going to charge $2,000 a person, and all I need is 5. Standard closing ratio, 25%. Here's what this means to you. You either need 4 leads to get your one $10,000 client. Anytime you choose, you can do it October, November, December, doesn't matter. Okay. Or to get those 5 leads, you need 5 clients, you need 20 leads, and you need them all within the same 30 to 60 day period. Okay. Otherwise, you're doing one-on-one coaching for group coaching prices because you're only getting one at a time. So if you don't know how to get leads consistently, if you don't have that like down, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot and you're really paralyzing yourself, because now you need 20 versus 4 leads. And this is why pricing and packaging fits into this whole client generation plan, because you have to know you have to know your pricing and how long your packages are for, because that affects the number of leads you're going to need to get, which affects how much activity you're going to do. I did something the other day with someone, they told me their pricing, and I'm like, you need 80 leads a month. Your pricing is not where it needs to be, because that's impossible with what she was doing. So did that answer the question, or did I go in a different direction? I don't even know.
Well, no, you actually defined something I think that's very important for people to understand, is that the pricing, I've always said the pricing is an art and a science. So it's like there's the science part of it, which is really what you just described, that, hey, if you're going to want to have 5 people in your coaching program, well, you've got to be talking to 20 people to get those 5. And that's if you're really good at closing.
Yeah. You have to be talking to 300 people so you can get those 20 people. So you can,
you can get the 5. Exactly.
Like,
so it's even more. Right. And I'm going to take a brief pause. Sajad asked, what I meant by business development versus marketing.
Thank
So
you.
that's a great question and I want Mary to fully explain it, but to me
Yeah.
it's a like the business development is really that one-to-one or just like an in-person in a room or on a virtual thing, whereas marketing is really sort of that there's not a personal touch to it. Do you think that that's about the same, or what would you say? How would
You
you
know, I
describe
use different terms because, and I'm so glad, Sajad, you asked that because
it? Mhm.
I was about to get into the vocab too, because
Okay,
it's
good.
so important. So I think of marketing as like all the things. It's like, it's your speaking, it's your messaging, it's your brand, it's your logo, it's your photos, it's everything. Okay. Marketing is all these things. And then there's kind of like, there's different components to it. And by the way, this is Mary's definition. I have no idea what the American Marketing Association would say about this, but here goes. So I think of it kind of in two broad categories. I think of visibility and credibility. That's what's out there. That's your website, that's your social media. It's out there. It requires your ideal client to stumble upon you. And you can drive traffic to it. And when you do drive traffic to it, it falls into the second category, which is lead generation. You called it business development. I think of it as lead generation. And this is, so while this is ideal client stumble upon you, lead generation is throw yourself in your ideal client's path.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one-to-one stuff you were talking about. Now, the problem often arises when people are doing visibility and credibility things safely behind their computer with no human contact, wanting it to do the function of lead generation, which is actually getting into conversations with people to hire you. And it's confusing. So understanding the difference between those two things. And as an example, speaking and referral generation, lead generation. Now, some of these things I mentioned over in visibility and credibility, like social media and so forth, they can be lead generation. They just have to have the funnel. They have to have the pieces stitched together. So you're getting people from cold or warmish out there in the world, curious, wanting to know a little more, all the way over to enrolling. And if you don't have that connection, then it's just visibility and credibility. It's out there, not moving over to lead generation. And in general, what I find is people leveraging their own networks, speaking to groups, this one-to-many format, keeping in touch via email, these things, those are lead generation. And usually if you leverage those first, it's usually faster than trying to, oh dear God, build a following. Sorry.
Right.
That's one of those phrases. Put myself out there, build a following. I'm like, I make people define that. I'm like, what does that mean? At 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning, what activity do you engage in to put yourself out there? And then why are you doing it?
Yes.
People don't always love that.
No. And then it goes back to something we talked about in the onboarding call for this show, where we were talking about going crazy with Instagram reels and all the stuff. It's like, literally, why are you doing that right now? Like, definitely be on social media because people go to check you out, and it also helps your SEO. I hope you guys know that. It helps your SEO for sure. Search engine optimization, if somebody doesn't know what that means. But don't be like having that basically run your life.
Yeah.
That's
And
not
it
that's not gonna work.
absolutely can. And
Yep.
it absolutely can.
Yep. Well, let me switch gears just a little bit here, because since we are talking about Rockstar coaching brands, that's what the show is about. I would love to hear from you. As you built your brand over, did you tell me 10 years you've been in business now? More.
12. Oh, 12.
12
I
years.
thought you were
12.
building my brand. I'm like, I'm still figuring it out.
Well, as we know, it's building your brand is a journey. It's never a
Yes.
destination. So tell me, what is something that you did during this time? Can you think of a time where you, and I'm not going to call it a mistake because I don't like that word, but what is something you learned a whole lot from? An
Yeah.
experience that you had doing this work for your brand?
Oh gosh, so many ideas. Okay, so one thing, and I was just working through this with my new business coach today, is when you have your brand, when you know what you're about, when you know what you work for, it evolves. And so what happens is it evolves, and then you start to adjust things. You're like, oh, I'm going to change this program name. I'm going to change the name of my talk. I'm going to change this. And you make these little changes. And this happened to me, it was 2019. And my business was Frankenstein. It was just like all patched together. The brand didn't work anymore because I was like, oh, it's going to be about this. No, it's about that. No, it's about the other thing. And I had a complete rebrand, and it was one of those, $25,000 things. Now that was appropriate because I was in the multiple six-figure range at that point. If I had done that when I was in year 2, that would have been a ridiculous investment because I had no idea what I was about. And even what I did know I was about, I wasn't clear enough to like build a full brand package around it. But understanding, like, there's a time where you can make little tweaks and it's not going to impact the overall brand. And then at some point, you have to look at the fact that you've fractured it and say, okay, now I got to step back and do a revamp. And Melissa, is probably something you do where you go, okay, look, it used to work, but now it needs a little congruence. And I'm at that point again. So I rebranded 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And now some things are changing, and it's more about clarifying. And so I'm having to look at how is that reflected in everything. So that wasn't so much a mistake as it is a realization of something to keep an eye out for, because I just caught it this morning for myself that I'm right on that edge. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to make changes tactically in these little places instead of stepping back and saying, what's the full picture of what's going on with the brand?
I love that. And so what's sort of that takeaway point for people then? Like, how should they know when they're headed in that direction? What's the sort of the about face that they should do, when they find themselves, doing things like that, like not being the consistent as they should?
Call Melissa. I don't know. No, I mean, the wake up call for me is I spent an hour with my coach Friday or Thursday last week, and she's more of a mentor, and we're adjusting all these things and going very tactically at this one very like specific area in my business. And at the end of the conversation, we were like, wait a minute, what is the purpose of this tactic in my business? Yeah. And I was like, shit, that was an hour wasted. Sorry, swearing. What was the purpose of that? But like, what is the function? What little cog in the machine is this supposed to play? Because we just adjusted it to be better, but do what? So if you're adjusting a lot of little things, but you're like, wait a minute, what does the big picture look like? Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to always ask yourself, like, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think way too many times we spend that, like, we're just doing and doing and doing. And then we go, how come we don't have the results that we're supposed to have? But it feels like it's such a big effort to stop for a second and take that pause. So I really appreciate that you tell people that. And so we're going to be wrapping up here. I want people to, if they have questions that they would prefer to ask you when the show, so that they can have it sort of private time here, get those ready here, guys, because we're wrapping up here. And one thing I want to ask is there any anything you've been obsessing over, like a tool or a book or software or something that you love that you would love to share here with everyone? I know I didn't ask you that in the onboarding call.
No,
so you're like, what?
Well, okay, so yeah, there's one thing, and you may know about it, you may not, but I'm a verbal processor. So that means if I have to write an email, it's going to take me 4, 5, 10 times as long as it is to just say something. So I have 2 tools I committed more deeply to using and just letting other people kind of conform to, and I say other people, my team, to my way of working. I use Loom to give instructions instead of writing out written instructions. And I use Voxer with my clients voicemail app so that they can have a lot of access to me, and my response time is fast and it's very efficient. I can just they can contact me almost any time, and it's just very, very quick. And it's about leaning into my easiest way of working, and I can solve people's or serve people faster and solve problems faster.
Yeah. I love those as well. The Voxer for me is like, I got to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
with the people that I work with, that or WhatsApp, depending on if they're not in the US, it's WhatsApp's usually easier for people outside the US. So I so appreciate that. All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the show for today. As I said, stick around with us for the last 10 minutes or so. We're going to chat with Mary offline here. Yet another reason why, if you are on, social media, you need to get in the room with us. Don't forget to get into Mary's world. We have posted a link within the chat here, and I believe on social media as well. I think Cass put that out there for us. And by the way, I want to invite you guys. I did create a brand new workshop, and I'm calling it Transforming Your Coaching Brand with AI, which is artificial intelligence. It's coming up on April 5th. And Cass is going to go ahead and put the link to that workshop in the chat right now. And what I'm going to address is your concerns about how AI may impact your business and your coaching brand, and give you some of the tools that you're going to need in order to navigate it without sacrificing your uniqueness. So we are going to be talking a lot about brand and how we use your brand with artificial intelligence to help you, not hinder you. So grab that. And let's see. Did she put that in the app? Okay, great. So Mary, I can't thank you enough for coming onto the show, helping people learn how they can do this lead generation in a way that aligns with their brand and help them create more clients and impact. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Melissa.
You are so welcome. All right, we'll see you guys not next Monday, actually, Monday, April 10th. We're going to have a episode with Alexa Carlin. I don't know if you know her, but she is the founder of the Women's Empower Expo, and she is also an author and really an amazing person. We're going to talk a lot about speaking for your brand, which I know Mary is a big fan of. So we'll see you then, and thank you so much, and have an awesome day. Bye, everyone.